Gas and electric utility giant Southern Company reporting this morning, $1.34 a share was above consensus estimates, but $1.14, although revenue slightly below forecast. Joining us now is Tom Fanning, Southern Company Chairman, President, and CEO. Let's start just quickly with your numbers. Give us the highlights quickly, Tom, and then we'll talk about the situation Jane was with PG&E was just talking about. So how are the numbers? Good? You happy?
Yeah, Joe, they were great. It was really a terrific quarter. The revenue thing you mentioned is really a benefit to customers. A lot of our revenue is tied up in a pass-through of fuel costs, and gas prices are super low. Represents about half the energy we generate right now. So that benefit was passed along. So really, all in all, a good quarter. About half of our significant exceedance of guidance was really due to weather. The other half was due to kind of a continuing benefit of tax reform and O&M discipline.
So, Tom, as a utility CEO, you know how to manage Southern Company, manage the utility. So you probably have a pretty good idea of what happened out at PG&E. I don't know if you've seen more private sector type newspapers. Like the Wall Street Journal really has taken the politicians to task for what's happening out at PG&E, and less so PG&E, saying that PG&E basically was responding to mandates from California regulators about renewables and how much had to be solar, and so that they haven't really built out the infrastructure that they should have because they had to focus on all these green initiatives, and that's what's causing this. Would you have managed it differently, or do you have an opinion on whether that's the case?
Yeah, boy, that's a complex question. Here's what I will say about it. You know, our hearts and prayers go out to these folks for the customers, right, everybody working the fire, everything else. But here's the deal. We have to think more in this nation, not about reliability, which is how this industry has been kind of run for over 100 years, and more about resilience. In other words, how does my system operate during unusual conditions? Over the weekend, we've been on the phone and working with PG&E. We had a big CEO call. This industry has an enormous kind of history of mutual assistance. And so as an industry, we're all pulling together to see what we can do to help PG&E. When you think about the political, legal, regulatory framework of California, it is exceedingly complex and certainly is different than what I would say is more of a business-friendly environment here in the Southeast. So that does compound the issue. What we got to do right now, somehow, is put all that aside and get about restoring the power and helping the people be safe.
And then there's forest management. But, you know, so the state now threatening to take over the utility, and critics would say that, you know, that the mismanagement by regulators out there, what's causing the problem in the first place.
Yeah, Joe, I think, look, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think the company is acting appropriately with the environment they find themselves in. They're kind of a function of the legal, regulatory, political, the whole deal. I can't blame PG&E for what they're doing. They're doing everything they can do with the best of their judgment. You know, let's just get through it and get the power back on and help the folks be safe.
Hey, Tom, the governor has very actively started calling for people to bid on these assets, to come in and maybe step in. He asked specifically for Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway to step in and make a bid for some of these things. I'd like to see them come take over. Would you be interested in trying to take over any of these power plants? Is that something that you think makes sense? Is it a situation you'd like to be in?
You know, it's almost like the broader economy we've talked about in the past, where business loves certainty, you know. We'll invest long-term capital if we see kind of a calm waters to invest in. I think that California is not in that situation right now. And sure, there may be some people that want to come in and speculate on how this thing's going to turn out. But boy, there are a lot more cards to be turned over before, I think, you'll get credible long-term investors in this sector over there.
And Tom, separately, you know, we had a congressman on yesterday from California who seemed to suggest it should just be taken over by the state and that these should be run by the state. Does that make sense to you? Because I was sort of pushing, is there a public-private partnership? How do you feel about the private sector being there This was a Democrat, by the way, who was making these comments, but.
Well, look, I think this issue transcends politics. In other words, what would public power do differently than what Pacific Gas and Electric is doing? I think anybody is going to be operating as a function of the environment they find themselves in, political, regulatory-wise, et cetera. You know, I think Bill Johnson, the CEO of PGE, and his team are doing everything they know to reasonably do to take care of the situation.